Okay, so hello. Um, Let me start by asking you to tell me a bit about your childhood.
Well, if we're just going off general, I'm too young to remember this, but I grew up in the States, and then my mom is from Europe, so we moved over to Europe just when I was 3 years old. Then we moved back to the States when I was 9 years old, and by that time I lost my English and I had to relearn English, which made
What
kind of
what language did
mhm.
you learn in Europe?
Oh, I spoke German, but I was in the southern part, so there's a dialect that's a little funky, and so I for for the short answer, it's German. But I had to relearn English, and that was tedious and made my childhood here, coming back here to a small town that was pretty insular, not a lot of fun until about end of high school, college, and then things got better again.
So did you feel ostracized?
Yeah, isolated.
Okay. Um, was that something that compounded a natural shyness, or was it despite a natural not shyness?
That's My shyness never was an issue in Europe, and I don't think of myself as being particularly shy. I just, I'm just not real talkative.
I see. Um, if somebody were, let's say, abusing a dog in a borderline fashion, like not really full on like whacking it with a stick or whatever, but like flicking its nose and kind of screaming at it, would you be likely to intervene and say something?
You'd have to give me more context. I mean, if this is, I would have to know if it's a situation where I could improve things by intervening. Because if it's somebody who's an owner and I'm going to piss off the owner by saying, hey, you shouldn't do that, I'm going to just make matters worse for the dog.
Okay. Do you think the benefits of standardized testing outweigh the harms?
By standardized testing, you mean like the SATs, for instance?
Yeah.
Uh, Thinking about it in general terms, I would say there's a need for some sort of testing to be done. So a bad system is better than no system at all.
Okay. If you were going to implement one major education reform, what would it be?
uh, I'd have to find somebody who's an expert in education. It's kind of like saying, how would I diagnose a car if I don't know anything about cars?
Okay. Um, as a general rule, which do you think you value more when they conflict? Kindness or honesty?
I would prefer kindness,
Okay.
unless there's some reason that you have to be honest.
So would your answer change if it's talking about whether you are the one choosing to be kind or honest, or whether you are the one being the recipient of kindness or honesty?
No, I'd rather prefer that people were kind to me than honest, and I would rather be kind to other people than honest. Again, if there's no harm incurred in avoiding honesty,
Okay. What about if kindness and fairness conflict? Is that any different for you?
I think again kindness would be, unless there's again going to be some sort of a bigger dust up caused that's going to cause more problems. Um, I would think kindness is more important than fairness.
Okay. Um. So, what do you value more than truth or creativity
Um,
when they conflict?
when they conflict. Well,
Like,
in between.
let me give you some bit more of a concrete example. You've got something that's a very outlandish, not very believable storyline, and in something that is meant to be entertainment, or you've got something that really resonates as true. When you're done with it, you're like, wow, that was heavy, profound. I really learned a lot of truth from it, or something.
Um, Between those two, I would probably err toward creativity because um, I think that there's truth to be realized in something that can be outlandish, absurd, really kind of special and different. So, yes, the truth may be something that's poignant and meaningful to me, but it's not necessarily the truth for everybody. So, if you get into something creative which has potentially a lot of meaning, that seems to me like you could bring a new message as opposed to a twist on an old message.
Are there any truths that are universal?
Um, I've actually thought about that before because, to be honest, because I've seen some of your past typing videos and you talk about the nature of truth. And I've been trying to figure that out. And it seems like every time I come onto something to say, well, this can be a firm objective truth no matter what, it doesn't seem as if that's necessarily the case. And
Okay.
even math doesn't always have to add up
Okay.
to what we would expect.
Um, so let me see. Can you tell me about your day prior to starting this and a sequence of insignificant events?
Yeah, today was kind of an unusual day, so I'm going to remember it pretty well. I had the day off, which was wonderful, and I got up before daybreak, made myself some oatmeal. I have this special recipe, which is kind of golden milk, a bunch of spices that goes with the oatmeal. And then I went to read the day's paper because I like to read the gossip column every day.
What's
And it turned out,
golden milk?
sorry?
What's golden milk?
Oh, golden milk it's something that's good for the stomach. It's sort of an Indian, South Asian style recipe. And it's got turmeric, cinnamon, a bit of honey, some fresh ginger. And the turmeric is, it's,
Did it have any milk in it?
yeah. There's
Or is
the
there
milk
milk
is
in
sort of
it?
the suspension.
Oh,
Turmeric
okay, I
needs
see. Yeah,
a
yeah.
fatty
Okay.
solution for it to dissolve into. So that's where the milk comes in. And I just dump it all into oatmeal, and that's, it's a healthy breakfast.
And does it have any saffron in it?
No,
I hear saffron's very expensive.
it is, but it has a mealy, saffron has a taste that would just, it's sort of gamey, odd. It would be no good.
Oh,
But
okay.
anyway,
You had
yeah,
your breakfast with your golden milk and stuff in it. Okay, continue.
yeah, the gossip column didn't have anything useful in it because they were doing some sort of annual book drive, so that was a disappointment. I cleared off my car because I live in a northern climate where we had some precipitation last night. Checked for my wife to make sure the driveway was clear so that she could go down for a physical therapy session.
And was it
And
clear?
well, the top half had some snow on it. The bottom half was just wet. And then the rest of the day, we went to a neighboring town, went to a bookstore. I picked up some books that are a present for my wife.
How into
And
Christmas are you?
not really. I mean, we go through these things because it's important symbolically. Um, in past years, we've done the whole big tree thing. This year, we've got a Norfolk pine, which is, a little 3 foot tall thing. We've put some ornaments on it, and I think we're going to have a modest holiday this year.
Hmm. I see. Um, How are you about food? Are you somebody who feeds himself, or are you responsible for cooking, or are you somebody who gets fed?
I cook most of the time just because my wife's more of a baker, and but we make very simple things. So for instance, she'll make chili, we'll freeze it, we'll have that for the week. Um, I'm a decent cook when I get around to it, but it's happening very rarely because of work.
Does she ever bake water? One of the simplest baking recipes there is.
Well, she knows how to boil water, but she gets actually very nervous around anything that's not baking related because she likes these formulas that you follow strictly, where I just sort of dump things in until it tastes good.
I see. Okay. So, if you suddenly had to change jobs to one of the two following jobs, which would you prefer to do? You can either be a bricklayer, or you can be telephone tech support for um, Adobe Photoshop.
That's a tough one. Um, I would like to resolve people's problems, but then dealing with people all day would be, pardon me, yeah. But then dealing with people all day would be draining. So
You could solve their brick related problems.
I I could say that I would be the worst bricklayer of all time,
You
probably.
don't think you'd be good at
So
laying bricks?
I think it's just the fact that putting anything in a straight line,
Yeah.
it's not so good.
Okay, so you aren't a big aficionado of power tools then?
No, no, you've successfully figured that out. Um, I would take off fingers and toes. It's not, no.
Yeah, I've been remarkably lucky. I'm not sure. I've I have power tools. I like to play with them sometimes. Um, I'm surprised I haven't mauled myself, maimed myself at some point. I have
That's
one time belt sanded my middle finger right here. It got
so
stuck
it took off
between.
the fingerprints.
It actually took just the top, the nail part off. It was on the top part. I got stuck between the sander and the plastic part. It got sucked up in there, and I was just like, ah! That's the
I'm
worst thing
glad
that
you're
ever
okay.
happened with the power tool. I'm glad. I'm surprised I haven't chopped anything off with a circular saw. Anyway, so you get tired of dealing with people after a fairly short period of time, or long period of time, or what tires you out about them?
Uh, this is going to sound so hackneyed, but it just takes energy to interact with people, especially in like a work related thing where there's a certain expectation and you're supposed to deliver to a particular format. If I'm hanging out with friends and it's people I know, um, people I enjoy being with, um, then it's not such a big deal. But like the Adobe tech support or teaching, I did do some teaching in the past, and I tell you, after 5 hours of that, I was cooked for the day.
What kind of population of students?
Fourth through eighth graders, so early teens, and that was spectacular. It was great fun, but it was also a very long time ago.
Yeah, it's um, you know, uh, middle school is a challenge. Everybody finds middle school challenging.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so if your kid came home from school and complained about bullying them at school, stealing their part of their lunch, like their Twinkie or something, what would you say to them?
Um, Boy or girl?
It's a boy.
Okay. Um, well, I'm assuming age probably not teen. So, younger.
He's 11.
Okay. Well, um, again, in full disclosure, I have to say that I've come across you asking this question before,
Hmm.
and I had a strong and visceral reaction to how what I would have said, but this is now not something that's coming off the cuff.
Okay,
So,
well, what was your initial visceral reaction to it?
well, the first thing, and nobody's ever said that, is I'd give the poor kid a hug and just be like, look, it's going to be okay. I mean, first, just like make the kid feel good. And it seems like everyone immediately rushes to solve the problem. And it's like, just, the kid's got a problem. You deal with that first. Then, after that, I would come up with ways to have my kid avoid whatever the situation is, whoever the person or the people are, and figure out a coping mechanism so that they don't get themselves into that situation anymore.
What if the kid says, but I want justice, I want vindication, I want them to be, I want retributive justice?
Retributive justice.
I want retribution.
You're on your own, kid. I mean, I'm not going to tell you what you can or cannot do, but there you may.
But
there may
Father,
be
do you
consequences.
approve of me seeking retributive justice?
I had an Irish kid.
Yeah. He's a blind British orphan child.
Very good.
He was, even though he's born of your wife, he's nevertheless somehow a blind British orphan child.
Affected an English accent. And, well, I'll have to put on his cap and send him on his way without any pudding. I don't know that I'd be the best person to come up with an answer for retributive justice. I mean, I would if the kid wanted me to.
I need your moral guidance, Father. Otherwise, I'll go astray.
Well, I think that just leave the situation, because if you want to fight that kid, go right ahead. But there's always going to be another kid who's going to be bigger, who's going to want to fight you, and you're blind, and they'll pull your English cap over your eyes anyway if you weren't. So
I'm only mostly blind. I could still kneecap him with a baseball bat.
well, that would be your decision to make. I don't know that
I give my kid a lot of latitude
condone
here.
that.
Okay, so all right. Well, so obviously my immediate conclusions regarding you right off the bat were, to the extent that somebody ever seems FI, you seem FI. You have a gentle, sort of view of the world. I think that's consistent with FI from what I can tell. So, would you abolish the death penalty if you were in a position to do so?
Yes, for both practical and emotional matters. Yeah, it would be the right thing to do on multiple levels. So, I believe so.
Okay. Do you have strong political opinions in general?
I do, but I keep them private because.
That's fine. I'm not going to ask what they are.
Yeah.
Okay. So, when you have a weekend that's suddenly opened up, you thought you were going to have to go to Aunt Judy's wedding, but then, after some looking around, you finally found your torch. I'm sure it's around here somewhere, so that you could light your cigarette. Here it is, over here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you were going to have to go to Aunt Judy's wedding. It's going to take the whole weekend. All of a sudden, Aunt Judy and her fiance break up at the last second. You don't have to go anymore. The weekend's open up, wide open, and your significant other says, "Brian, listen. Whatever you want to do this weekend, that's what I want to do. This is Brian's weekend. Okay, and here, look, I've just got this envelope full of cash to pay for everything too, so we can splurge a bit. Don't go wild, Brian. Don't go wild. We're not buying any yachts, but we can splurge a little bit."
Okay. Well, I think that first and foremost, I'd probably just I do what I'd want what my wife would want me to do, because that's just always going to be a good idea. So if she's got certain things, she generally
I
knows
have
to
one thing
leave
in
me.
mind. Whatever Brian wants.
Well, in that case, I would lock myself in my room with a couple of books and a computer and just um, probably do some
No,
reading, some
Brian,
writing.
an activity involving both of us, okay?
That's the rub. Yeah, okay.
I
Uh,
want you to want to spend time with me. I shouldn't have to tell you this.
well, in that case, I would think, uh, again, it's just we'd poke around. If the pandemic wasn't happening, go to some coffee shops,
Ooh,
go
I
drink
know.
coffee.
Let's go check out that thrift store downtown. You know, the one next to
Yeah,
Lucy's. Wouldn't that be fun?
I would be into that. Going antiquing for a certain amount of time can be entertaining.
And do I
So,
sound like your wife?
I'm sorry?
Do I sound like your wife?
Not even remotely,
Oh,
but
okay.
that's okay. I have a vivid imagination. It's
That's just my generic woman, you know.
the similarity is uncanny, but
Okay. So, if somebody tried to give you a puppy as a gift, what would you do?
oh Jesus. Um,
Say it's a
well,
colleague from work. Brian, look what I've got. I've got a surprise for you. It's a puppy. And it's
well,
got a bow on it and everything.
yeah. If it's something manageable, I guess I would have a puppy. We've
Take
got
the
one
puppy.
dog already.
You got one dog already. Okay, well that makes sense. You could have a second dog, wouldn't kill you.
You
But
know,
although
it
I
isn't.
thought that too, and that second dog did kill me. So
No, what kind of a breed?
oh, I had my regular little dog, which was Lacey, who was half corgi, half chihuahua, and then we got this other dog named Compton. So we got the dog in Compton, um,
Hmm.
and I don't know. It was some kind of like shaggy mutt kind of dog. I don't know what
Oh,
you call it, but
okay.
it was a terror compared to Lacey, who was a pretty obedient little dog. You know,
Not a terrier.
no
Okay.
terror. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I would suggest if that does happen to you, and someone gives you a puppy, that you turn it down.
I That would be my first inclination, but I figure if that ends up with a puppy being homeless or put to a shelter, then
You should be like, you know what, Christmas miracle. I'm giving this puppy right back to you.
same bow and everything. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, so let's try some extroverted intuition questions then. You sound like you know the drill from some typing videos. I'm gonna do some inky pinkies first.
Okay.
So this one is a briskly done um, a briskly done no a source of strength for doing things briskly, and it's a inky pinky.
Source of power for doing things briskly. Quickie, something quickie. Well, I'm drawing a blank
It's a
on this
hustle
one.
muscle.
Hustle, muscle. Okay. I would
Let's
not have gotten that.
start some more straightforward ones. It's a preferable um, overshirt for warm weather, and it's an inky pinky.
Preferable overshort for warm weather.
Overshirt for warm weather.
A
For
which?
cold weather. Overshirt for cold weather, sorry. A
Overshort for cold weather.
preferable overshirt for cold weather, and it's an inky pinky.
Sweater.
Rachel, I wonder if you could do me
Hmm.
a huge favor and give me a O'Doul's from the fridge. Thanks. I am muy thirsty.
Hmm.
It,
I
it's a better sweater.
better sweater. I see. Okay.
Okay. I wonder if you can make up one of those kind of questions for me.
Sure. Um, it's a, let's see, it's a it's a device for pulling a piece of literature off a shelf.
Um,
Ink pink.
okay. A, a book took? A
Oh,
book.
a book hook.
A book hook. Oh, a book hook.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so um, when you express yourself creatively in some capacity, are you more likely to do so? Thank you, darling. In writing, music, video making, dance, architecture, or what?
Uh, the first three. So I have a guitar here, but it has not gotten a whole lot of use for a long time now. I do a fair amount of writing. I've been doing some video stuff just to for pure entertainment. That's a newer medium for me, and so it's a smattering. But I would say the thing that I'm actually okay at would be writing.
Okay. And do you think you're better at writing characters or plot? If you were writing fiction.
I'm more interested in world building and scenery and character, I think, than plot.
Okay.
It's sort of you get the characters right, the plot presents itself on the basis of what the characters are like.
Right. Okay. Are you more likely to write fiction or poetry or nonfiction?
I would be, well, I write nonfiction for my job. So, papers and manuals and that sort of thing. I would, most of my own writing is more tabletop role playing game stuff. So it's a lot of notes and world building and just sort of a lot of miscellaneous cruft that's loosely interconnected in a way that becomes useful when you sit down with a bunch of people to kind of play through it. So it's sort of like plot ideas and character notes and just a random collection of lots of stuff.
Okay. When it comes to doing, say, a technical manual where you are writing out presumably, say, instructions for how to put together a MIA, is that the kind of thing you might write a technical manual for?
It's more things like white papers that discuss why is Mia a superior way of doing things as opposed to the alternatives, or we talked to 300 people who told us that 65% of them said that Mia is the right thing for them, and therefore this would be the sort of thing for you to consider if you were to
I see.
look at the same problem.
So like data analysis and stuff.
Yeah, it's basically analyst work.
Okay. If you had to write a manual explaining how to put together a piece of furniture using only words, do you think that would be a challenge or something that you'd find fairly easy?
I could do it, but my writing process isn't real clean. I tend to start with. It's a little bit like taking a log and then sort of refining and sanding and polishing down the final product. So
So you
it
start with
starts.
too much and you get more concise as you edit it down.
I hope so.
Okay.
uh,
Um. So, how do you feel right now?
Vaguely, somewhat nervous. A, I would would say just sort of a little bit relatively neutral. I don't have any strong feelings in any particular direction at this point.
Okay. If you had to play the role of a man whose chicken had gone missing, who was very fond of that chicken, and he was in the emotional state of wondering where his chicken had gone, would you be able to muster that? Would you be able to do that, perform that acting job?
I don't think I'm a very convincing actor because, as you can tell, I've got a certain speaking voice and a certain mannerism. I would just not be the sort of character actor that someone would hire for losing a chicken. That said, I could certainly feel the emotion of someone who's distraught at having lost their chicken.
It's like, oh my God, where's my chicken?
Yeah, but I'd probably do a really crappy job communicating it in a convincing way. So...
Well, that's interesting if you could feel that emotion, huh? I could actually feel that emotion too, because I think of the emotion I used to feel when I leave my dog places. The thing is, I used to take my dog places, and I had her trained to wait outside the store for me until I got back outside. But sometimes she'd go exploring the parking lot and stuff, and then I'd come outside, I'd forget I had her with me, and then I'd just ride my bike back home. And then I'd go like, oh fuck, I left the dog at the 7-Eleven. And I'd drive back there and she'd just be waiting there and not letting anybody touch her or grab her, and I'd feel so guilty about it. It was such a terrible feeling. But see, that was back when I was drinking, so people do dumb things when they're drinking. Anyway,
It's facts.
Yeah, facts. That's why I recommend O'Doul's brand beer. It doesn't have any alcohol in it.
Very good. Well, I'll drink to that.
Okay, so let's try some TI questions now and see how you do with the introverted thinking stuff. If Tommy has cheese, then he'll make sandwiches for everybody. But if he doesn't have cheese, then we will order a pizza. And we do not order a pizza. What can we conclude?
That Tommy has cheese because that is the only other potential outcome. It's either the pizza or...
He has cheese and therefore what?
I forgot the second piece. He's making sandwiches
for everyone, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty generous of them considering there's 60 people here. Okay, let's see. If either P or Q, then R, and not Q, what can we conclude?
Either P or Q, then R. Either P or Q. Not R means
and not
neither
Q.
P nor Q.
Yeah, if I had said not R, you would have been correct. But
Okay.
I did say, in fact, not Q.
Not Q. Okay. In that case, I don't know that there's anything that you can conclude.
You can't conclude anything.
No.
What a sad question.
Well,
Okay. If some leaves are brown and some brown things are poo, can we conclude that some leaves are poo?
I believe no,
Correct.
because
Okay. Can you please describe to me cutting down a dying avocado tree in exactly 4 steps?
not knowing what an avocado tree looks like precisely, I'll take a little bit of creative license. But number one would be to identify the avocado tree. That is to confirm that it is actually dying, because I don't know what they...
That's an avocado
see.
tree. You can see the big leaves over there.
Okay. So it's like another kind of fruit tree, sort of.
It's got big big leaves, and that particular avocado tree it does have a health problem. It prevents it from making avocados, but I don't think it's dying. I don't know if I improved its health problem or not with my half-assed Eric solution, but I did something to it. Anyway, okay, so it's just basically a big tree that's got big leaves on
Okay.
it.
So first you want to make sure to do an avocado assessment to make sure that the tree is indeed dying. Don't want to cut down the healthy tree.
Check to make sure it's
Second,
dying. Okay, good.
yep. Second, you'd want to procure yourself a saw or axe or other instrument of destruction.
Good sour and
Um,
axe.
yep. And then third, you would want to apply said saw or axe until to the trunk of the tree until it is felled.
Sour,
And
chop
then,
accordingly.
yeah. And then the fourth step, I would say, would be to take apart the various branches and trunk to separate into small enough pieces so that you can transport said dead wood or the evidence of what you've done out of the area so that tree the
Okay.
area where the
It's
tree had been
good.
planted is now clear.
It's a good four-step process. Okay, so what do you find to be the relationship between introverted thinking and and extroverted intuition? So, in other words, is is thinking introverted thinking only valuable insofar as it's instrumental to creativity, or is creativity only valuable insofar as it's instrumental to logic, or are both of them only valuable as instrumental to something else?
Hmm. I'm probably going to bollocks this question because I'm not sure how all of these interrelationships would work, but I do use ideating in my job to figure out new and creative ways to do stuff that has a logical sequence. But I don't think that that's necessarily TI. Um, that's
That would be more extrovert intuition, probably.
yeah,
But I mean, the thing is, the TI part would be checking to make sure it is logically valid. Um, does the
mm,
validity in and of itself seem like the goal, and then whether or not it's new or creative is irrelevant, or does the newer creativity seem like the goal, and the validity just seem like it's something you have to do to get to the new creativity out there?
yeah. The validity is more or less just that step that needs to be done in order to get to the actual goal, which is the what you're trying to communicate. So it's more like my my numbers have to be in a row, my logic has to work for this thing to get out and for people to say, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Okay, so what do you think your topmost priority then is? Is it to have a happy client, to have good perceptions of you in general, to do a good job of actually solving the problem from some sort of an objectively good solution kind of perspective, um, to uh, or to come up with a strikingly new and creative solution.
Well, um, I think I'd be happiest to have a client that's happy with me first and then happy with the project. Um, if I'm not, the rest is sort of, the necessary pieces that follow. But I've actually been in situations where I've talked to a colleague where they're trying to figure out, like, what do we do with a particular project? And it's like, well, um, we don't necessarily, it's not our job to do this sort of specific, logical, consistent, true framework for the reader. Our job is to make sure that the client is happy. So we sort of come to the priorities to make sure that, and if the client is happy, then they're going to be happy with us. So that's sort of where the priorities fall.
I see. And okay, so let's say you've had some sort of an experience, and you go like, "Yes, that was very satisfying." Um, well, let me put it this way. Let me change the angle of this question. So, some people, like me, for example, and maybe other types more than others, I'm not sure, have what you might refer to as an ego spank bank of memories of things that happened where you like to go back and re-remember them because you like the way that event happened for whatever reason, because you looked good, you said some funny jokes, or you really killed it on them. Yeah, and everybody thought, wow, this guy is impressive. Or those are the kind of things that like are in my ego spank bank. What sort of memories, if any, do you go back to remember and go, that was a cherished moment? Like some people might say, like, well, I always remember the birth of my child or something. I don't know.
Well, I much more frequently remember the negative stuff that happened than the positive, about like things that were where I did something terrible or just made an awful decision or looked awful. But the positive stuff is, this might sound weird, but both the negative and the positive stuff, I've been thinking about this sort of issue since I've been getting back into MBTI, and I don't know that I fully trust the memories that I've got, because I think that they are through a lens of what I believe happened as opposed to what actually happened, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, I mean, yeah, there are positive memories. Sorry.
Do you think that your memories are more stories than memories?
I mean, I do have visual memories, but I don't think that they're, again, I feel like I'm selectively seeing certain or thinking of certain things. And it's sort of like that moment that this particular thing happened out of, with embellishments, let's say, as opposed to the reality of what actually happened.
Okay. So, are you more likely to tell somebody else, look, the bottom line is meow, and just sort of nutshell it for them, Or are you more likely to get somebody to say to you, look, Brian, the bottom line is meow, and nutshell it for you?
I'd rather they do it. The way that I'd work it is more likely to sort of say, well, here's the available options. Here's the things that you could do in this situation, and then hope that they see that there's only like one viable
Brian,
option.
I need a clear single path here from you, Brian. I need a clear single path. Give me what's the best choice. I just need you to just nail it down for me. Is it A, B, or C?
You can look at A, B, or C, and then you can figure out for yourself what the path is based on where you need to go. I mean, this is
Brian. I'm a client who just I need to hear it from you. I need to hear you say this is the way, the one way. Tell me which is the one way.
Yeah.
You don't like that, huh?
No, I do not like that. There's always lots of ways to do stuff, and there's no conclusive. And it comes down to the way I manage too, is that I hate telling people what to do. It's like, look, if you do it this way and something goes wrong, I can protect you because I've told you to do meh, and you've decided to do it, and I kind of know the consequences, and I'll jump in front of the train if that happens. But if you decide to do this other thing, sure. I mean, even if I know it's set up for failure, go ahead and do it, and then you can learn what that failure looks like, and then we can kind of say, well, okay, now let's try it this other way.
Okay. So, I think you're an INFP, but the other possible thing you could be, in theory, I guess, would be an INTJ. Um, I I don't know. I don't know how you could be anything other than one of those two types because it seems like you got FI in first or third slot, and it seems like to me you're you're more extrovertedly intuitive than you are introvertedly intuitive, which is to say you kind of countervalue the idea that there are single universal truths, that there are single solutions, that, just nutshell for me. You don't like to do that. So, I mean, that would tend to suggest INFP. Additionally, right off the bat, I felt myself being cautious, which is typical of. This is not a good reason to type use anything, but is typical of my experience with INFPs. Just because I think it's built into the supervisor kind of function relationship. So, can I ask what you thought you were coming in?
I certainly didn't think I was an INTJ. I I do think that I'm an INFP, and once upon a time I thought I was an ENFP, but that was a long time ago, and the main reason was because of um, reading this shows. I think I'm your age or maybe even a little bit older, Eric. So I got into this in college and was Kiersey's Please Understand Me. Um, and their INFP description was just terrible. It was like, you're Mother Teresa. And I just was like, no.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. The thing is, you're not an ENFP because you're too you're far too you're far too good at the TI stuff for one thing, and it comes to you like a slot does. The way that you thought through the sum one suggests to me backslide, not front side, but definitely not way better than polar, and just everything about you says INFP. The only reason I said, well, the only other possible thing I could imagine would be INTJ because that at least you have the same you have similar looking values. So the FI is similar looking in the third slot, and NE in the fifth can be strong, but I mean you don't seem like an INTJ at all, and just you're pretty clearly NE, not NI, so that makes you INFP. I think.
yeah, and this actually has been very helpful because it didn't say at the outset, but I was hoping for this to be a calibration. So I believe that I was an INFP, but I don't see any INFP typing videos in your group other than maybe one or two. Um, so I kept kind of trying to find. There's just so many mistypes in it that I just did not want to go forward and then have host Eric say, "Oh, you're definitely an ESFP," and it's like, well, it shows you what I know.
No, you're not ESFP. You're an INFP. I mean, it's my NI on these things is getting a little better, but I genuinely don't. I do my best to not let it influence me at all. I got the vibe from you early on. You seemed like an INFP, but if the test results had shown otherwise, then I would have checked it. I was also thinking maybe ISFP. I had a couple other things possibly in mind, but everything lines up with INFP. So,
Okay.
yeah, so I think you are.
All right. Well, thanks. That is helpful.
Oh
And
shit!
oh,
I just spilled my beer. It's on me. Um. Yeah. So,
that's
sorry to
that's
interrupt
the
you.
danger of drinking.
Yeah. Thanks, darling. Yeah, she's gonna go get some paper towels from me.
Well, I do have one more question, if it's okay.
Sure, of course, yeah.
And it's a completely off the wall question, but well, there's two questions. One is, where does talking with famous people come from?
Well, it was the name of. I used to do, before I ever did videos, for a long time I made audio recordings of basically impromptu little skits and stuff that I'd make up as I was driving around in the car or whatever with an audio recorder. And so when I sort of started doing stuff again after I quit drinking, I made one of those with some characters that I had made up called the International Delight and Purgatory Lemon Squeeze, in which I interview them, and I start the thing. I'm sort of improvising. I say, oh, "This is host Eric of Talking with Famous People," was just the name of the talk show I made up on the fly. Right? I thought that's a funny name for a YouTube channel, and then I just
Okay,
made the
gotcha.
YouTube channel that name.
Yep, very good. And then one other thing, and this, I hope it doesn't give away any secrets, but nobody's ever asked this, and it's having to do with the troll question.
Mm-hmm.
What does the troll actually want? I mean, is the troll eating all the food, or this thing's been driving me nuts?
Okay, so it turns out the troll is part of a troll organization that he sends the food downriver and it gets exchanged into troll dollars. Presumably, the trolls sell the food back to people downriver again. I guess I don't know. He doesn't want the food because he actually eats the large catfish in the river, and people have successfully killed him by poisoning the large catfish in the river that he eats. Of course, one could also, which nobody ever thinks to do, you could go fishing in the river.
Yeah, I didn't think of that, but I think the most interesting thing that, and you probably want to edit this out because someone else is going to have to think of this. The most interesting piece would be to go to the troll and say, look, just please, whatever we have to do, just stay where you are. And then start building troll statues in the town and send out criers to all the neighboring villages and say, we have a troll, come see the troll. And then bring in all the tourism, start taxing all the tourists that come in, put people on the boats that go back and forth with like some food that they can hold in their hand, and they'll actually see like the troll take 10% of it, call in scientists from around the kingdom to like look at this. You could make a killing off this guy.
Well, okay, that assumes that river trolls are rare, right?
That's true, but I kind of figured,
I mean,
if you get a troll, it's something kind of special.
yeah, I mean, I like your idea. I like your idea. However, I don't think that's going to pay off fast enough to prevent starvation in the winter, because if you're probably not going to get a lot of tourists in the Middle Ages in the middle of winter coming to see your river troll. I really like the idea though of you having those machines that you put quarters into and you turn it,
Yeah,
and shoots out
get a little
a
food
handful of troll food, and you go
yeah,
across the river and troll runs up and
yeah, and it's like for a shilling or a farthing or whatever they.
yeah,
Anyway,
totally. That's a good idea. I appreciate you sharing that. I don't worry about other people hearing the troll question or the various answers because I generally don't ask it anymore. And also, if people have heard the question at all before, then it's irrelevant. And, there's no point really in asking it. If they've never heard it before, then they're not going to have heard this either, probably. So, okay, cool. So I'm going to
okay,
stop recording now.
yep. And I'd say if you'd like to go ahead and publish it, that's fine. I have one special request, if you could, which would be if there's a way to make the splash page not have my face on it.
Okay,
Um,
sure.
that would be fantastic. But part of the reason that I did this is to figure out if I was an INFP. Part of the reason was because I'm not seeing any INFPs in typing. So it's like somebody should step forward because all these people are always saying, that's an INFP, that's an INFP. And I'm looking at that going, I don't know what they are, but that's not, I don't, yeah.
There's a lot of crazy nonsense out there. Okay, well, cool. Thanks a lot. I will do
Thank you
that.
very
I will
much.
make sure the thumbnail doesn't include your face, and thanks for letting us publish.
Much appreciated. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye.